How the Central Florida economy fared in 2024. You're listening to The Wrap from Central Florida Public Media. I'm Brendan Byrne. Florida's economy continued to grow at a faster pace than the national economy in 2024. That's according to Sean Snaith, director of the University of Central Florida's Institute for Economic Forecasting. He says the state's economic growth is being fueled by a rise in population, which feeds into construction spending.
There's a lot of construction still ongoing in Central Florida, not just housing, but large-scale public works. All these people and all these cars put pressure on this transportation system, so that's going to continue to need expansion and investing.
A look back at Florida's economy as we head into the new year. That's ahead on The Wrap. The big stories this week from Central Florida Public Media. But first, these news headlines. A smattering of new state laws have arrived with the new year, but the highest profile change, restricting access to social media for children, will not be immediately enforced. The social media measure seeks to prevent children under age 16 from opening social media accounts on some platforms. Supporters of the legislation, including Representative Juan Porras, argue that social media companies have created addictive platforms that harm children's mental health and can lead to sexual predators communicating with minors.
We've seen such an uprise in social media the past 10 or so years, and with that, the rise of mental illness, suicide, depression. So there has to be something that we as Floridians can do to combat that.
In October, the Computer and Communications Industry Association and NetChoice, whose members include tech giants such as Google and Meta, filed a federal lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the restrictions. The bill did not name social media platforms that would be affected, but it included a definition of such platforms with criteria related to such things as algorithms, addictive features, and allowing users to view the content or activities of other users. Florida wrapped up 2024 with a 7-year low in vehicle crashes and a 4-year low in fatalities, according to data from the Florida Highway Patrol. Central Florida Public Media's health reporter Joe Mario Pedersen has more.
Florida had a 10% decrease in total crashes between 2018 and 2024, and a 9% decrease in fatalities that same time frame. At the county level, Orange, Volusia, Lake, and Seminole counties all saw less fatalities. Migdalices Garcia is a state trooper with the Florida Highway Patrol. She says the agency is focusing more on preventative strategies, including increasing its communication with the public through social media.
You know what? We get a lot of calls about people speeding on this certain, in this certain area. Let's go over there. And then that's how, they move around through the counties.
Once FHP finds potential hotspots, they send troopers to monitor the area and cut down on the number of tragedies seen on the roadways and clearing the way for safer travels. Joe Mario Pedersen, Central Florida Public Media.
The Space Coast's newest rocket could take off as soon as next week. Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket completed a critical final engine test at its launch pad at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, clearing the way for its inaugural launch. The company, headed by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, says it has multiple launches planned for the 320-foot-tall rocket, including commercial and government customers. According to public advisories, a launch could occur as early as Monday, although Blue Origin has not officially announced a date. For its first flight, New Glenn will carry what it calls the Blue Ring Pathfinder, hardware to test the company's ability to communicate with and control hardware in space. The test will also help certify the vehicle for future national security missions for the U.S. Space Force. More local news stories on our website. Visit cfpublic.org. As Americans are remembering former President Jimmy Carter after his death, former Democratic state lawmaker Dick Batchelor hopes those getting into politics today will take a lesson from Carter.
You can be a straight arrow, and you can survive the politics of it, and sometimes you have to take positions that are not politically popular, but the right thing to do.
Listen to that conversation on Engage. Get it wherever you get this podcast or on our website, cfpublic.org. Florida's economy thrived in 2024, outperforming the national average despite hurricane losses, driven in part due to a rise in population. Central Florida Public Media's Talia Blake spoke with Sean Snaith, director of the University of Central Florida's Institute for Economic Forecasting, for a look back on Florida's economy last year.
How did Florida's economy fare in 2024?
It fared pretty well. We continued to grow at a faster pace than the national economy. Our labor market in the state is more robust than the national labor market. population growth continues to take place and fuel this ongoing economic growth. So, hurricanes aside, we had a pretty good 2024.
Based on your predictions last year and at the beginning of this year, would you say we kind of stacked up to your predictions, or was there anything that was surprising?
Now you're forcing me to admit I got something wrong, but I actually was pleasantly surprised and happy to be wrong because the state and the national economy, for that matter, outperformed where I thought we were going to be for 2024.
What are some of the top maybe 3 things that impacted our local economy this year?
Well, as always, tourism. I believe the annual passenger traffic at the airport is something in the order of 57 million people. So, they continue to visit our region, and we've got investments that are continuing to be made in our tourism infrastructure, if you will. And so Universal has a new park, the first new theme park, I think, in 24 or 5 years, opening up with Epic Universe. Disney announced, I think, over the next decade or so, $17 billion of investment in new attractions in their parks. And so that's going to continue to feed that sector of the economy. And then, we've got, of course, the convention center and the whole I-Drive corridor that continues to do well. And so that was and will continue to be a key driver. Population growth, as I mentioned, feeds into construction spending. There's a lot of construction still ongoing in Central Florida, not just housing, but large-scale public works. All these people and all these cars put pressure on this transportation system, so that's going to continue to need expansion and investing, and so that sector as well. And then, things like healthcare, there's a lot of expansion going on there. So, those are kind of the big 3 in Central Florida's economy.
What can we expect for the new year?
I do think we are going to see a bit of a deceleration of growth, but not anything dramatic. And the labor market is really strong in Florida. I mean, like historically strong. And so we may see the unemployment rate drift up a few tenths of a percentage point in 2025. But even at the higher levels, it still will remain at historically low rates. So yes, we are forecasting both the labor market and the economy to continue to outperform the national economy, even though both are going to see some slowing. I do want to add something about the Federal Reserve and interest rates. So they started to cut rates in September, and they made 3 interest rate cuts at the end of the year here. I think they're going to have to stop making cuts as we get into 2025, at least for a while, because the progress on getting inflation down to 2% target has not moved along at an appropriate pace. And so I think they're going to take a pause here going into 2025. So interest rates are not going to see a big downward movement next year. And so that has implications for housing, for your credit cards, for auto loans and everything.
Sean Snaith, thank you so much for talking with me today.
My pleasure.
That was UCF economist Sean Snaith speaking with Central Florida Public Media's Talia Blake. For a more in-depth version of this conversation, visit our website, cfpublic.org. That's it for The Wrap this week. This podcast is produced by Central Florida Public Media with assistance from News Director Latoya Dennis and Digital Director Ryan Ellison. Editing this week from Joe Burns. I'm Brendan Byrne. This is The Wrap.